Hi, this is Nathan at Rain Networks. In this video, we're going to go through a couple of the options that Macrium gave users to manage drivers with their Macrium SiteDeploy product. Macrium SiteDeploy allows you to push images to machines, and those machines are not necessarily always going to be the same hardware set. So as we use a image from one hardware set to another, it's going to be key that we give drivers to the process so that the machines will cleanly boot. If we did not have this and you attempted to put an image from hardware set 1 onto hardware set 2, when you booted the machine on hardware set 2 with this new image, it would likely blue screen. So we need to be able to give the imaging process the proper drivers so that Windows can ingest those drivers and then boot the machines cleanly. So we're going to start with the drivers menu item in Macrium Site Manager, and this is under the Site Deploy section. You'll see it, it's the fourth menu item down, and you'll get this screen. Now, the key tool to this operation is down at the bottom of this screen. Okay, so I'm gonna advise you to drill down to the very bottom and get this tool right here called the Macrium Driver Harvester. This is a great tool, and Macrium put this in here for you to use. You can use it on any machine that you want. And basically what this tool will do is it will export drivers out of a machine, which can then be saved and imported into your deployment media. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So first of all, I've opened the driver harvester on my machine. I downloaded it and I've opened it up, and it looks a bit like this. Okay, so you can see here that because 3 of the 4 drivers that it found are already in Windows PE, which is what our deployment media is based on, we don't need to grab them. But it does want to save this one particular driver. So if I was to click Save to Folder here, I could then save this folder into wherever I want to save it. And then what Macrium is going to want you to do, I'm going to go back to the management console here. If I scroll up here, it's going to want you to put it into this location on the machine where your site manager is installed. Okay, so see this location here in program data? You're basically going to copy and paste the driver into that folder. After we've done that, we then go back to our deployment media section and we click the rebuild button. Once we do that, it will then import that driver into our deployment media. Now we will need to remake our deployment media, but if you watched my second video, you saw how easy that process is to do. You can see that in mine, I've harvested one driver, meaning that that driver is now a piece of my deployment media. And if I attempted to do imaging and Macrium sensed that I needed this driver, it would inject that driver into the process and would allow my image to then boot cleanly into Windows. Okay, so just to recap, the steps are: go get the driver harvester, run it on any machine that you think you might need to push an image to, copy those drivers into the Macrium drivers folder, rebuild your deployment media, which will then bake those drivers into your deployment media, and then remake your deployment media. Okay? Once you've done that and you boot up your deployment media, they will automatically be a part of your deployment media, and Macrium will use them as needed. Now, this is a virtual machine that I have that is booted up to my deployment media. Let's say I needed to drop a driver into the process on the fly. Maybe I had forgotten to run the driver harvester, or whatever that might be. Or maybe this is just a brand new machine and I just had not thought that through. I also have the ability to load a driver into the process kind of in an ad hoc basis. This is done by clicking this computer details button on the right, going to the devices tab, and then clicking load drivers. I used this with a gentleman the other day who was imaging a server, and in order to see the partitions on that server, we needed to feed Macrium the RAID drivers for that machine so that we could then access the partitions underneath that RAID controller. This would also be an example of where you might use this load drivers button. Okay, we click load drivers, we feed Macrium the driver. In many cases, like on a normal machine, you would just feed it, say, the chipset driver. That would be the key driver that's generally needed to get deployment to finish cleanly. But this has the second method for injecting a driver into the process. Okay, so number one, use the driver harvester as much as you can. That will just kind of automate and make your driver process clean. And then use the computer details button inside your deployment media if you need to feed a driver to Macrium on the fly. I hope this helps. Frankly, managing drivers in SiteDeploy is really one of the best parts about this product. Macrium knew that they needed to tackle this issue. Drivers are always an issue with a deployment tool, and Macrium did a great job of giving you a way to manage drivers, collect drivers, and it just really seamlessly injects them into the process with very little effort. Okay, hope that helps, and stay tuned for more videos on Macrium SiteDeploy.